Now, the second piece, of course, comes in verse 25, down primarily through verse 30. A gospel marriage reflects Jesus in sacrifice. He shifts his focus from the wife to the role of the husband. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Well, that's a daunting task immediately. Again, just as the church submits now, the husband takes on as the Christ figure and is to love as Christ loved the church. The good news for the lady is that she gets to fulfill her role and still be alive. But the man has to die. That's what the message is. The message is that he needs to lay it all down. He needs to release himself entirely. He needs to get lost in love, as it were. That's an extraordinary something. To do that is, I think, impossible outside of the Spirit. To lose yourself entirely in love. Love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. So what that means is that sacrifice becomes the operating motif for the man. Now, I don't want to turn this into some kind of a soapboxed, hooting and hollering thing. But can I just say something that's an observation about guys, men, after a lot of years of marital counseling, premarital counseling, and discipling men? Men have selfish issues that go down really deep, and they get down to menial, stupid stuff. And men, you do really well. And it's just going to sound silly, but it's actually quite important. You do well to just eat places your wife would like to eat. I'm serious. You would do well to watch some shows that she likes to watch. You do well to listen to the kind of music she likes, and I say that, and that's a rough one on me, but, you do well. You do well to just say, you know what? On small things, I'm going to start there, and I'm going to move my way. I find that men have a difficult time in weighty matters because they're selfish in menial matters. Just get over yourself. Just get over yourself. Okay? And just decide that you'd be happy to live in someone else's world. You'd be happy to do that. If you're not sure you'd like to do that, don't get married. She doesn't need that from you. It's important because, especially as you have kids, because you'll end up turning into the lump on the couch who's more interested in the game than what's going on in the life of your kids. And you'll be more interested in the news than the news that your wife has from her day. And your family doesn't need that from you, quite frankly. They have enough of a selfish world. It'd be good to have some selflessness at home. So how do you do it? Well, let's look at it. He's talking about Christ and the church who gave himself up. Now, but by extension, what he's doing is he's describing the act of Christ with the church in a way that's transparent, so that behind it we see the act of the husband with the wife and say, this is how it's supposed to match up, okay? That he might sanctify her, set her apart. He might, this is what Jesus does for the church, so the husband is to do for the wife. My wife is supposed to look more like Christ because she spent time with me. Having cleansed her by the washing of water with the word, we'll come back there, so that he might present. This is the goal, to present the church to himself in splendor, without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, that she might be holy and without blemish. Bryan had been married for 30 years, and this woman has really been a bane in my side. 30 years, we're out, and I don't like who she is. Well, if you're waiting for me or you're waiting for another Christian man to cry a river for you, you might be waiting. And the reason I say that is not to take lightly that she's accountable for her own life, but it is to say you have some say in what she looks like. Some say, present to himself. You can't get away from the language. Present to himself. So you will present to yourself a woman years from now. If you're newly married, you'll present to yourself a woman years from now, and she will very much be someone that likely, not every time, there's exceptions, but likely someone who has the brushstrokes, the texture, the color that you've labored for or haven't. I have found a lot of men over the years who have whined and moaned and cried and been very upset and angry over who their wife has become, as though she became it in a vacuum. You were present for the whole show. The problem was you were watching other things. Be careful here. The goal is holiness, having cleansed her. That verb, having cleansed, is an aorist active, and here's what that means. The best thing I can give you as a vision of what an aorist active looks like is, you know the pictures you can take on your phone now, that you take them and then you like touch them and they go for like 3 seconds or something like that, 2 seconds, you know what I mean? Those little active pictures. That's an aorist active. An aorist is like a snapshot of an event, and the active is something's happening in it, okay? So it's like this snapshot saying, look, this is what the activity, if you were to take a snapshot, a short video reel of the husband's role, it's supposed to be having cleansed. That's what he's supposed to be doing. He's supposed to be about that, is the idea. Well, what's the tool? It's right there. By the washing of water with the word. This is not a reference to baptism. Likely, here's what sits behind this, actually. What sits behind it probably is a ritual in Judaism. They used to have a prenuptial bath and a ritual cleansing before they would get married. And it's probably appealing to that, not to say, hey, take a shower once in a while. It's not saying that. Although that's a good idea. Hygiene's very important in marriage. But it's to say, no, you cleanse, make that your active, proactive role, washing with what? With the rhema, with the word. With the word. With primarily, you take that to mean directly the gospel and its teaching as fleshed out in God's revelation to you. Well, that means that you have to be what you could call an evangelical husband, right? An evangelical husband. You have to be someone who takes the word and knows the word enough to bring it to bear. So, let's just say this. Husbands, your wife does not need you to be the Sphinx on Mystery Men. Your wife does not need you to be Dr. Phil. Your wife does not need you to be a sort of counselor with great sage wisdom. Your wife does not need you to pull from the resources of your past experience. Your wife needs you to take the Word of God and to bring it to bear on her life. That is what she needs. She needs the wisdom of Jesus, you as a sluice pipe, as a conduit of the reservoirs of Christ.